Hi people, another follow-up video regarding my project. The spinner has a name, it's called Inertia, and the website is up, but it's password protected at the moment because I don't actually have anything to sell. The website's called realorbit.com.au, and in front of you can see two samples that I have. Now, I'm in a little bit of a situation because I'm not happy with what I've been sent, and I'm in the process of looking for another manufacturer. What you see here with the brass weights is the first attempt, and this one is after some revisions because the machinist said it couldn't be built the way I had designed it, due to some parts of the spinner being too thin, causing the metal to warp. Now, comes to feel wise, I actually prefer the feel of this one as opposed to this one, but that's just my personal preference. They both feel very good in the hand, but they both have issues, and I was being charged quite a high sum to manufacture these, so I had decided on a retail price. Oh, by the way, this one's titanium and this one is steel, and we had finally set on a price for $90 US for the steel and $120 US for the titanium. Extra weights, I think they were $25 each. Having said that, I understand the price for spinners varies greatly, but I feel that if I wasn't willing to pay $90 for this spinner, then I shouldn't expect anyone else to pay that amount. And I don't think what I have in front of me is actually worth the $90 asking price. That's why I've decided to look for another machinist. I'll explain the problems. Now, just having a little vape. The problems with the spinners are the machining wasn't up to scratch, meaning it's not as accurate as it should be to make the spinner work flawlessly. I'll start off with this one, get that out of the way. This one has a radius of, well, the diameter of the body was 6.2 centimeters, 62 millimeters, and the weights added another 2 mm on each side. Quite a little bit bigger than your average size spinner when it's spinning in the hand, but I felt with the trend going towards smaller spinners, some people might appreciate the slightly larger one. On the scales, in case you haven't noticed, there's no actual structure to this video. I'm just going off what's in my head. It's at 68 grams, so roughly 70 grams, which is a good weight in my opinion. Now, this spinner, it's got a slightly above average diameter, but it is quite thin in the middle, which means it was quite easy to handle and fidget with, and it feels quite good in the hand. The machinist said the problem was parts of it were too thin, and during production it would cause the metal to warp, and that's why we have these big gaps. I don't know how much you can see on the camera, but there's quite a substantial gap. In addition to that, these two plates aren't exactly a perfect fit. One of them is bent a little bit and the weights kind of keep it in place, but there's no denying the fact that this is not machining worthy of a $90 spinner. It's got the Kong V2 buttons on, and I've just put the weights on with one screw so it can hold it in place, but it would be held together by two screws. So I got these sent first, and I got two of them. This is the worst out of the two. The other one was slightly better machined, although they both did wobble, and the better one has been sent to another machinist to see if he could replicate it and make it better. So I've kept this one for the purpose of this video. Now I'm going to take off the weight just so you can see where I'm dissatisfied with what's been done. So there's a screw. I'm sure you've noticed how easy it was for that screw for that weight to come off. That's one of my issues. I wanted the weights to be a tight fit so they could hold the spinner in place even without the screws. I know eventually with time, pulling out the weights and putting them back in, they'll eventually loosen up, but initially, and the other one I had was an extremely tight fit, and the only way that these two parts are held together is by the weights, so one would imagine that they'd need to be a tight fit. So pull off the weights, let's undo the button. And this is what the two pieces look like underneath. Now, problems were that this part with the two cutouts on the top and the side cutout was too thin, so it would make the material warp, and then you'd get a less than perfect fit. As you can see, here. So, after receiving that information, we've decided to make revisions. I went back to my designer, my engineer, redone the drawings, and oh, actually, the most important thing I forgot to mention was this is the part the weight fits on. This piece here where the screw goes in my drawing was a perfect fit for the gap inside the weight. I'm talking about, let me see if I can get it on camera, the distance from here to there. On the weight, it is a much bigger distance than this part here. Now I saw that with the first samples, and I've requested that they make it an exact match, because that's the way everything holds together. When I received the second batch, the issue remained the same, so I wasn't very happy about that. I've also, I mean, I can understand some things can't be made exactly as they are designed, but with better communication I could have changed this, maybe made this part a bit wider so it can fit in the weight. But the communication wasn't there, and I just got sent a new sample with the same issues. So let's put that one aside. And here is the updated design. Actually, I'm going to close this one up so you can see them both next to each other. Okay, so this is the first sample on the left, and this is the updated, revised edition after extensive talks with the manufacturer. It's smaller, meaning it's more compact, and it's thicker in the middle, which was the cause of apparently the issues. So it's become quite a lot thicker in the middle, and the side holes have been removed for added strength. Nevertheless, the issues still remain in that the machining is not accurate enough. It does look cool, I really like the looks of it, and I've got steel weights and brass weights, and I really like the look of this one, and I like the way it feels in your hand. Backwards and forwards, it feels really nice. But look at the gap. Can you see that gap in the middle? That gap in the middle causes a hell of a lot of problems. First of all, the hole where the bearing sits is precise measurement for the bearing. If you have a gap like that, it means the hole where the bearing sits inside is a little bit too big, doesn't put the required pressure on the bearing, and when you spin, the bearing moves around and it gives you an awful spin. So there's no way I was gonna produce a product like that. Another factor, another problem is I initially had these kind of screws, which is impossible. Oh, yeah. And I've requested flat head screws that were so they can attach to the weights better, basically. And this is what I got. Flat screws. Problem is, there's not enough space for both of the heads to sit comfortably, resulting in one screw sitting on top of the other. There's no way that's going to happen. Let me just pull this one apart and show you. A few other changes that were made. Now, the guy that was manufacturing this for me suggested that since it's a two-part body and for more stability, etc., etc., he should add some pins. I don't know what the technical term for those pins are, but pins inside the body so they can hold the two pieces together. I said, okay, give it a shot. And he added these pins. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So you take these screws off. And once again, the weight's they're just barely on there. So you'd imagine if that's the way you're holding the body together, you want them tight. The lighting situation here is a bit crap. I've sanded the pins away, by the way. I've sanded them down because they were just, I saw no point to them. So he had a pin here, here and here, and it was the opposite on this side. So you could see the holes on one side, pin on the other side, and they would hold together, which is it's a good idea, but the problem was it made the gap even bigger. After sanding down the pins, I can say that the gap has pretty much gone. That is until, so first insert the bearing, put the other piece on, and if I hold it with my hands, there is no gap. It sits perfectly. If the spinner could sit like that, then it would have been no problem. I would have been releasing this. But you put these together and then you put the weights on, which are loose, and immediately you start getting the separation. Added to that, once you put the screws back on, and the fact that the heads are bigger than they should be, the actual screws make the body separate even more, which is very, very annoying. So I've cancelled the agreement with that specific machinist, and I'm in the process of, well, not looking for another one. I have another two options, but I'm just waiting for them to get back to me with some feedback. As I said, this is meant to be a $90 spinner. For $90 I expect quality, and I'm sure anyone that spends that kind of money on a spinner expects the same. There's a lot of talk about made in America, made in Europe, made in China, made in Korea, made in Japan. People tend to look down on products made in China, and I'm starting to understand why. Also, everyone's saying that the spinner market is dying. People are starting to comment that they're no longer buying any more spinners and blah blah blah, but at this point I really don't care. It's a personal mission for me to make this spinner. This is what I've been thinking about for months, and I'm almost there, so I'm going to keep trying. So I've put one screw in, everything sits properly, but you can hear the looseness of the bearing, and you can also, very hard to see on camera, but you can actually see through the two parts. If you put at eye level, you can see all the way to the other side. It spins, I mean, yeah, it spins alright, but it doesn't spin well enough for a $90 spinner. This one, titanium with the copper weights, comes in at 55 grams, which I think is spot on. And the steel one, same size, the revised version, was in at 70 grams. So size wise, weight wise, they work. Feel wise in the hand, obviously it's my opinion, but I think they're awesome. For me, this is the perfect spinner. Either one of them. I mean, if I could get the machining down, I'd probably release both of them. Two options. People were saying that you're going to have wobble issues because you've got too many moving parts, you've got screws, you've got weights, you've got this and that. These were never a problem. People were talking about steel density or material density, and it has to be exact, but these weights are near enough the same. Obviously this is a sample, so one of them is a bit off, but these two are exactly the same weight. Brass ones come in at slightly heavier, so these two are 5.99, 5.96. Then again, this is not the most accurate scale in the world, and I would be personally weighing all sets of weights to make sure that every spinner is released with the weights weighing the same. The screws are so small that they don't even register on the scale, 0.06, so that would be a non-issue as well. The only problem is 0.07, 0.06. So yeah, all my fears regarding the making of this spinner, all my problems actually have come from elsewhere, not the things that I thought were going to be hard. So here we have it. They're still pending. I'm still trying to get them to work, but at the moment this is where I'm at. I've got some videos of me spinning both of them actually, but mostly the larger version, and once I've sanded it and played with it and tweaked it, and I got it to a stage where it was acceptable, and for me it's very, very satisfying to play with. If I get the build quality right and I'm able to release it, I think a lot of people would enjoy it. As it stands, it might not happen at all. So thanks for watching, and I'll keep everyone up to date. Peace. I just wanted to add a few more things. This is the titanium, very dapper. This is the Arachnophobia. Valkyrie Mark II. What is it? C3, C1, Zentri, whatever it's called, and the Triad. All these spinners range from, what is it? Well, this one's dirt cheap now. I don't know, $15, $20. Spins very well for its price. Then we've got, I think this one would be the next one up. $40. Silky smooth, great bearing inside. Then it'll be probably the Triad. Well, to be honest, I had a few issues with the Triad and the retention system. It is a bit loose, but again, it spins very nicely. And then we'd probably, I think I paid 65 US for this one, and probably the same for this one. And both of these spinners spin in a very satisfying way. They're not, none of these are high end, but they all spin very well. If I'm going to be selling this at $90, okay, granted there's a lot more work involved in making this than any of these other pieces because of the multiple parts, but when someone buys a spinner, they buy it for the feel. I guess that's why I buy them. I mean, yeah, there's the collection aspect of it as well, but you want something that when you're holding it, it feels good. As it stands, these two do not feel any better than any other spinner I've just shown. And that's the reason they're not being made. Hopefully they will. If not, oh well, gave it a shot, didn't we? See you later.